Good morning. I am Pete Najarian. This is The Take for Market Rebellion. We do this every single day and just wanted to catch you up on just what's been a very, very volatile last couple of sessions. As a matter of fact, we've been talking about this volatility moving up. It had been in the 21, 22 range and then started this explosive move towards 26, 27. Well, we didn't stop there. As a matter of fact, August, we all know, amazing August. We had a great start to September until yesterday, and then things started to go a little bit into a different sort of a spiral than we had been seeing. As a matter of fact, pumping the brakes, that wasn't pumping the brakes. We shifted into reverse and started going backwards. It was really a volatile session. And I mentioned we'd been trading 26, 27. We actually jumped into the 30s yesterday, got as high as 36, finished off, call it in the 33 level sort of area. And that is indicating some pretty substantial moves on an each and every day sort of a basis. As a matter of fact, once you get past 32, you're looking at about a 2%, a little bit more than a 2% move each and every day out of the S&P. Is that possible? Absolutely it is. We have seen volatile markets, obviously, this year, 2020. The other thing we've seen a lot of this year has been an incredible amount of volume. Now, we've had great volumes in 2018, 2019. We've been building upon that. We get into 2020. We started off with some great volumes. And then, of course, during the pandemic and with those huge volatility spikes that we had early when we got as high as into the mid 80s. Now, let's not forget about that, mid 80s. Here we are now in the mid 30s. A little bit of a difference. But all that being said, one of the biggest moves that we've seen in a matter of months, we had a huge day yesterday in terms of how the markets just completely flipped. We were looking at the Dow that was trading above 29,200 and bang, suddenly we get a huge hit to the downside, down 800 points by the time we finally finished the day. Not on the lows. We got off of the lows, but certainly a pretty painful day for so many. And you look across and you could see the names that were pulling on the Dow. They were the NASDAQ names. They were the technology names. They were the names that have been really rocketing this market in many ways to the upside in the NASDAQ space. As a matter of fact, the NASDAQ, what an incredible move that we'd seen yesterday. But a lot of these NASDAQ stocks, and it wasn't just the tech names, it's also the semiconductor names. It's a broad swath of what has been working. And then suddenly people just wanting to say, you know what, let's pull the ripcord. I'm not feeling very good about this, and I'm feeling a little bit nervous. And then we started to see this huge drawback, and it was very, very swift. As a matter of fact, you look over at some of the names in the Dow, big names, Apple, Microsoft, Salesforce, all of which were off at least 4% and more. Then you look over at Intel and Cisco and IBM, also obviously tech names, chip name mixed in there, off 3.5%. So those definitely pulling on the Dow in a big way. But you look over at the NASDAQ, down 600 points. Now let's remember, the NASDAQ is more than a half the value of what you're looking at when you're looking at the Dow. So a 5% move to the downside, 600 points. And that's actually an improvement off of the lows by a full 100 points because it was down 700 points. So a really beating is what it really was yesterday, and a thrashing of so many of those various names that have been leading for a while now. Names like Zoom and NVIDIA and Tesla and AMD and Apple and Microsoft, you know the list. All of those getting slaughtered and those leading to the downside, off about 6 to 10% in some cases. You could throw in Netflix, you could throw in Amazon, Facebook, Google. Yep, everybody was participating to the downside. Semiconductors, they had just come off of all-time highs, and then got a punishment as well. They got beat down over 5% yesterday as well, actually 5.3%. And you look at through those names, Qorvo and NVIDIA and Skyworks and AMD, and you know the list, all of which were getting punished. And then on the other side, it was also fintech. You know, we talk about what a great area financial technology names are. PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, all those names, all getting pounded to the downside. Cisco, Adobe, you name it. Names were absolutely getting slaughtered across the board. You look at the XLK, the technology index, down 5.7%. So it gives you a huge sense of the exodus that we were seeing yesterday. Volumes through the roof. And we've been talking about this for a while now. As a matter of fact, the option volumes, we hadn't seen these kind of volumes in quite a few months because we got over 45 million contracts yesterday. Now, I bring this up all the time. Normally, it's in a positive way. Well, when you got that much and you're expanding that much in terms of the volumes, and it's been something, I heard people talking about, wow, we really had some volumes in the options market yesterday. Really? The amazing thing about that statement is we have had it all throughout 2020. If you've been watching the take, you've been hearing me talk about these unbelievable volumes. Yes, yesterday was a big volume day, significantly different than what we've been seeing. But we have been talking about 33 million, 35 million, 32 million, very aggressive positioning in those option markets, those derivative markets. And when doing so, obviously, open interests are getting that much bigger. Far more participants have been involved. So this is not something that just suddenly happened. This is something that's been going on for quite a while. And that's why I preach every single day when I do the take at the very end. I oftentimes, and I'll do it now, you got to have the knowledge. You got to have the understanding. Do people really understand the derivatives markets well enough, or have they just jumped in? You've got to be educated. It's so important. You've got to understand all the Greeks, all of the pricing mechanisms that go into options. There's time decay. There's so many different variables that are very, very important to understand when you're in the options world. I think it's the greatest place in the world to be. I think it's the growth that we are seeing in the markets. There's absolutely no question about that. And that growth has been going on for well over a decade, actually quite longer than that. And it's just been explosive and accelerating over the last decade in terms of volumes. Since I started on CNBC back in 2007, January, the volumes have gone up, 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 up every single year. And as a matter of fact, the last couple of years, we kind of started to plateau a little bit, 18, 19, really close to that 20 million mark. Well, this year we have far surpassed that, but it just shows you the participation is there. You've got to have the knowledge if you want to participate so you can actually reduce your risk or understand your risk or understand what all these mechanisms really mean when we're talking about the options markets, because that is so important. You've really got to have that knowledge. Now, let's jump on to today. So today, markets have been absolutely all over the map. As a matter of fact, we came out with those unemployment numbers and we looked in the release, and 8.4%, everything looked great. People looking for a little bit higher number than that, certainly, and it's definitely improvements from what we have seen. The markets jumped. The markets had been very far down late last night and then started to recover a little bit with some of these economic numbers that came out this morning, popped everything back into the green. As a matter of fact, the Dow was sprinting. Matter of fact, you look at the NASDAQ, it had been down significantly, caught all the way up to flat, and then was moving to the upside. We were up 30, 40 points fairly early in the NASDAQ, but we started off about 64 points down. Anyway, the pressures have been there. The volatility of the movement has certainly been there. I got to tell you, I'm looking right now, so why don't I give you a quick update? We are now presently down. The Dow had been running to the upside, up 200 points. Now, down almost 200 points, 182 points. We're about almost an hour into the trading session. The NASDAQ had been in positive territory, as I mentioned, very early on. As soon as we got to the opening, we started moving to the upside, had a nice move. Then the rug was pulled out. We are now down 3%. That's 340 points to the downside right now for the NASDAQ. So a significant hit, and volatility, which I was going to tell you is trading around 31, 32. That has flipped as well. That's actually right back near yesterday's highs. We're above 35 right now on the VIX. So expect movement. Expect significant movement of 2% or a little bit more than that right now. The S&P right now is only up, or rather down, about 1.5%. So it's actually trailing where you're seeing the VIX trading right now, which is indicating about a 2.2 type percent move right now out of the S&P. It's actually only moved about 1.5%. So you could see that volatility index go a little bit higher, and you may even see this S&P really start to decelerate or accelerate, but to the decline, unfortunately. But we'll keep an eye on that, certainly. And a lot of things can happen throughout the day. We've got a long weekend in front of us. A lot of people start pricing that in as well. So there's all kinds of other mechanisms that go into a longer weekend, like a Labor Day weekend. So I talked about these volumes. The volumes have been extraordinary, but it's not new, and it's something that I think we all have to take note of, that it's not new. It's something that's been building. It's continued to build. Yesterday was another one of those big days. We've had much bigger days earlier when we had some of those horrific moves, mostly to the downside, but those 1,000-point moves throughout the day that are from top to bottom and all those kinds of things. Unbelievable movement. Well, that's kind of what we've seen already in less than the first hour of trade today. So we opened up about 150 on the Dow, and what was leading it? Well, you had names in the financial space, industrial space. So a little bit of that rotation maybe, at least for now, maybe, showing that rotation that maybe the financials can start to have any kind of leadership. Maybe the industrials are ready to start making a little bit better of a move. And so when I looked and I saw the names that were absolutely leading the Dow, it was JP Morgan, it was American Express, it's Boeing, it's Caterpillar, it's Honeywell. Those names were performing pretty well early on. That was what was moving the Dow to the upside. The Dow's making a little bit of a recovery right now. It's now down about 140. But also early on, the areas that were sort of almost start helping the markets, we had Tesla, we had Marriott, we had the airlines, we had United, the casinos, like names like Wynn. But then the pulling started, and the pulling started to really overcome, and some of those names flipping. But the names leading to the downside, even early on, that were definitely in the red. You had Zoom, you had PayPal, you had Lulu, you had Nvidia, you have Apple, you have Netflix. A lot of the contributors of this big move to the upside, a lot of those definitely on the pulling side to the downside right now. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at the NASDAQ down about 306, so down 2.6%. It's a pretty ugly looking number right now. And the Dow is trying to fight it off a little bit. I'm looking at the S&P down about 41, so that's improved. And the volatility index in this short period of time, since I was just telling you it was above 35, now close to the low parts of 34. So a lot of movement, a lot of shifting around, and we have seen some unusual. We've seen all kinds of unusual today. I'll give you a quickie. I did mention the airlines were one of the bright spots. So I'm going to go with Delta today. Now, the interesting part of this is, if you've been watching day in and day out, I've been preaching about how amazing it is that everything is so short term. And when I say short term, I mean options yesterday and earlier in the week that are expiring today, Friday, September 4th. There are also maybe even extending out to September 11th, but that's actually, it feels like a long way away these days, because that's just how much short-term paper we have seen. But we've seen some stuff go out to October. We've seen things out in January. So it's not exclusively just here, but that is the majority of the paper. No doubt about it. Extreme short-term, 1 week, 2 weeks, that's about it. And then you start to see a little bit flaking on the outskirts of that and going out maybe 2 months, 3 months, but that's been rare. Well, Delta today, that is something they're doing. They're going to December, and the December 32 calls trading a little less than $5, somewhere in there, and the stock trading 31.80. There was a buyer of over 4,000 of these. Now, when you buy 4,000, it's 40 cents. That's one thing. You buy 4,000 and it's near $5. That's another. That's a much bigger dollar amount going into that trade. And as I said, buying some time. When you go out that far, you're buying time. You're paying for that time frame out to December for this to actually react and maybe make that move over 32, and maybe an explosive move over 32. We'll see. But that's exactly what the paper is looking for right now, is a move out of the airlines, a move out of Delta, but it's not necessarily in the ultra short term. Maybe there's a little something. They're obviously looking vaccine-wise. There's all sorts of different things, but that's part of, I think, when you're looking at these options, part of what you're looking for is why and what are the reasons and some of that. And certainly we know the pain of the airlines have been under. We know all the cuts that they're projecting out there in October 1st, all of that, but looking for maybe a little bit of a bump to the upside out of Delta. So that one stands out. That one's pretty interesting. I'm going to give you one last little checkup. Dow's down about 200, NASDAQ down about 340. You got the S&P now down 50. And the VIX starting to creep back up towards 35 once again. So another wild ride today, folks. Put your seatbelts on. It's going to be an interesting one, especially the fact that this is going into a Labor Day weekend, and I think people are going to want to start buttoning things up a little bit earlier than normal, but we'll see exactly how things transpire as we get a little closer to the noon hour. Folks, have a great day of trading. Have a great Labor Day weekend and a safe Labor Day weekend. Again, thank you to so many, and I can't tell you the thousands of people who have been reaching out and offering their best wishes for my family, my brother John and myself, all my brother Dave as well, and all our family members with my father's passing away, and sad, and yet off to a better place, joining mom and my brother Paul. So we're all at peace with it, but thank you so much for all the well-wishing that we've gotten. It's unbelievable. You know, there's so many awful things in social media. There's also a lot of blessings that come out of social media. A lot of wonderful people reaching out. Very kind words and very appreciated by all of us. I wanted to tell you all thank you. Oh, one last thing. Got to take it. My wife, the Twin Cities Lyme Foundation TwinCitiesLime.org. If you go to that website and you go to the events page, next Saturday, September 12th, we will be having our virtual gala. Can't do it live anymore. Virtual gala. It's only going to be 1 hour. It's not going to take your entire weekend, but it's going to be next Saturday, 7 o'clock. So that's September 12th. And we've got some great entertainment. We've got some great live auction items. If you go there now, those live auction items can be bid on right now. And as a matter of fact, the generous folks here, Market Rebellion, I was able to convince them into donating a package of our own. So go over there and check it out. You can see what you potentially could get. It's just it's really exciting, and we're trying to do as best we can. We've got a lot of people in line that need to get diagnosed, that need to get we're helping with awareness. But the diagnosis process is something that we also try to do for people who, if they can't afford it, we try to help make that affordable. So that's really what we're trying to do at Twin Cities Lime. I sit on the board with my wife, who's the founder. Unbelievable organization, a lot of great people, a lot of people giving a lot of their time, and for the right reasons. Folks, have a great day of trading.